All right, CSTI exercise designers. This is one of the 3 videos that teaches you about the exercise design process that I've been using initially. Obviously, nobody has to do it my way, but giving you all the tools so that you can if you need to. So there's this video about how to make a map in CSTI's GIS account so that you can use that map to design your measle. There's the second video about the measle file in Excel and how it's constructed and everything. And then the third video is basically how to finish everything for the couple days before the exercise is going to be run. So how to reorganize the measle, how to align everything for printing, all that good stuff. So we'll focus on the map in this one. CSTI has been given an account by Cal OES in something called ArcGIS Online, and that's what I typically use because I can access a lot of data that's being served up by the jurisdiction in most cases that we're planning for, and it's a lot more data than what you can find on Google Earth and things like that. So it'll tell you, in many cases, jurisdictional boundaries, all kinds of stuff. So basically, if you open a blank web browser here and just type ArcGIS Online, it's almost always the very first thing that shows up. So it says account login right there. If you are designing exercises for CSTI, they can provide you with the username and password. Obviously, I'm not going to record that in a video. So just know that if you're being charged with exercise design, you need to ask for that, the username and password. So the username is pretty easy though, and that is going to be in the video here. Administrator, not administrator, administrator. And then when they give you the password, you can go ahead and use that to sign into the account. So once you sign into ArcGIS Online, you're basically entering Cal OES's master account up at headquarters. CSTI is just one of these 373 accounts in theirs. So you'll actually have access to data that's made by Cal OES GIS too. So if you're working with them to create some kind of data, or you want to take data they already have on file as part of your scenario, you can ask them to share it with this user ID. So when you're in here, you automatically get dumped into this organization screen, which is all about the master account and who to contact and all that good stuff. What you're predominantly going to be working in is called the content, because that's your personal content for this specific account, or any content that may have been shared with this account. There's a folder in here for custom exercises. I pretty much work solely within that folder so that things are segregated from their main folder for the account. That way you can easily find the custom stuff versus most of the SLUDMAR stuff is actually in the main folder. So when you're working in ArcGIS Online, you have to have layers put on maps, and maps feed applications. So you can see right here, we've got some layers that I've stolen from our USGS because we were designing an earthquake scenario. And here's some in San Mateo. Then you can see this map for San Mateo and this application for San Mateo. So this map feeds this application. Same with the San Diego one. This map feeds the San Diego app. When you're designing the measle, you really don't need to have the app because you're the creator of the map anyway, so you can work straight in the map. I usually create the map at the end, or the application, sorry, at the end for all of those people who are in the simulation cell so that they have a way of viewing everything without being in the raw map. In other words, they can't screw up the map because all they can do is look at it in the viewing application. So with that, we're going to go ahead and create a new map. So create button and map. And it's always going to ask you for a couple of things. Title, you'll see in that folder, that custom exercise folder, the naming convention that I've been using for them. But for this demo, I'm just going to do sample. You have to have a tag of some kind. So I almost always put CSTI. Sometimes I'll put the jurisdiction we're designing for, San Jose, San Mateo, whoever it may be. Summaries show up in the screen so that if somebody looking at this map and it wasn't you, you could actually tell them what it is. This is a sample map. So that can be handy as we go more and more years into custom exercise design when we're trying to find a historical map for a previous exercise. And then the folder, it's going to want to save it in the folder I'm already in, which is the custom exercises folder. You can use categories too, a lot of GIS people do. I haven't really ever needed to because I can look things up via tag, and I also have that filing system, but to each his own. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit OK on that. What ArcGIS Online is going to do is basically create this online blank map. So it's going to put what we call a base map on there. It'll be zoomed way out in most cases to show you whatever it deems and whatever the account's defaults are. So CalOES's account default, you can see as it's making the blank map, is to put that drop shadow on California, and it has the roads map as the base. I remove most of this stuff because the way CalOES has this default designed is for the State Operations Center displays, and it really slows down the use of the map interactively when everybody's in the simulation cell. It loads too slow, honestly. So I'll take this CalOES mask layer off, removing it. It'll say, are you sure? Same with this drop shadow. I'll take that off. So again, these are configurations that are defaults in the account. So now you're back to just a plain GIS map with what we call an Esri base map. There's all of these other base maps that you can choose. So a lot of times when I'm designing an exercise, I'll be flipping between streets and imagery hybrid because I'm looking for buildings in the imagery hybrid, but I'm usually trying to get street names off the streets. I do not use this CalOES streets based map. It loads so slow that the SimCell will not be able to use this as a tool. So I definitely don't use that. But you can play around, figure out which ones you like the best. If you're doing obviously like a landslide scenario, you might want to see terrain because it'll show you how that would work, flow downhill, all that good stuff. Right now I'm just going to leave the standard on, and for this sample map I'm going to be using some data down in San Jose to show you how that works. So I'm going to actually zoom in here to San Jose. When you're working on the map, the first thing I always do is look for what layers the jurisdiction might have that I can grab that are going to tell me things that I might not know because I'm not from that jurisdiction. When you're searching, because again, that's add and search for layers, you're defaulted into your own content, but your content isn't the only thing you want to search through. Sometimes you want to search through, my organization would be searching through all of the data CalOES owns and gives this account permission to, but I normally search in ArcGIS Online because I'm looking for what the city of San Jose is serving up that I might be able to use. So when I'm in here, I can type in San Jose. If you're working for more rural counties, you might need to think of the county name that the city is in and search both in the county name or the city name, because sometimes smaller cities won't necessarily have GIS departments. But here for the city of San Jose, I know the county and the city happens to have data. So I'm just going to kind of scroll through these. So this is a very specific shuttle service. As an exercise designer, I probably don't need to know one independent shuttle. So I'm going to kind of just keep going through that. They have this vision of their safety corridors, so that's something that's probably not a reality yet, and I wouldn't need that as an exercise designer. You can go down here. They have crash data, it looks like that they're serving up. They've got their block book, so time I see a layer that I think I might want to see on the map and what kind of data it is, you can either click on the name and it'll open up more about that layer if they have something, which they don't, or I can simply hit the little plus sign to throw it right on the map if it loads. Sometimes, since this stuff is a little bit new, you might get an error code like this because somebody's doesn't have the service configured quite right. I honestly just skip them and I go, okay, well, I can't use that one. Bummer for me. But here's a trees layer. When it's got this little icon that looks like a page with a pinpoint on it, that is like a feature layer. This one's probably a pretty big layer. If it's every single tree in San Jose's urban canopy, it might take a minute to load, or it might not be visible unless you zoom way in, just because there's so many dots. I can imagine there's probably a ton of trees in San Jose. But I'll keep, while that's trying to load, I can keep going down looking for more layers. Sometimes you might look for things statewide. So you might say cities in California, because you want to see all the cities in San Jose. And the State of California Information Technology Department sometimes has data sets that are border to border in the entire state, which would include every city and every county. So I can try loading this hospitals layer. And I'm usually just going through this and loading everything. So community centers and libraries, might want to check that one out. City limits, be a good idea if I'm designing an exercise for the city to have their city limits on there. This is from the city of San Jose. It's actually got their seal and everything on it, and it's in their OpenGIS data portal. So this is like their base map service. So you might want to check out what that looks like. And you can add as many things as you want, because you can always remove them if it's not something you want to see. So like this is obviously a grid system probably that accompanies their parcel map and everything. So this might be a little too muddy while I'm trying to find data. You never know. So I might just, hey, take that off right now. But I can always take it off later, like I did on the other two layers initially here. So here's more boundary layers. Here's buffers of schools. So that would give you where all the schools are in the city, and a buffer around them. Could be for some kind of permitting use or something, but hey, it tells you where all the schools are. Then you'll get stuff like this from Foothill GIST, and it says like just Starbucks. So sometimes you have college students, things like that, learning to use GIS, and they'll make data sets. So a lot of times I'll be looking at who's publishing the data set too. If it says the city of San Jose, then it's obviously probably a lot more accurate than something that somebody was just playing with as part of a class project. Historic places, when we're designing an exercise, obviously there's you want to destroy a historic place that has all kinds of implications and ramifications that facilitators could use as teaching moments. Supermarkets, it looks like a point file to accompany that school buffer file. So what you should probably see is like a point, like this one, right in between, in the middle of the buffer. So now you get the actual school where it's located plus the buffer area around it from that previous one that we found. They've got airports, stormwater service, sanitary, sewer service. All of these things are things that be helpful for you as an exercise designer, because, hey, you shake and you break something in the sanitary service layer, then that's basically, no sewer service. So you just kind of have to play around with these. Sometimes when I'm initially starting the map, I'll literally have hundreds of layers on there. And then when I go back here, I might decide, oh yeah, that one's cluttering up the map. Like if we go back to that trees one here, hey, this trees thing is really cluttering up the map. I don't really need it. I'm not going to do anything with trees. So I can literally remove that layer to kind of clean up and only save the things that I'm dealing with in my exercise design. So you can see this one trees layer actually loaded 4 different service layers here. So I might decide to keep one. I might decide to not keep any of them, kind of like I'm doing now by getting rid of them. It's just really whatever you think you're going to need to design the exercise. So you can see that cleans up the map considerably when I get rid of all those little tree dots. And now you've got your hospitals, you've got your schools, you've got your school buffers, probably, let's see here, San Jose city limits. If it looks like I'm not seeing a city limit boundary, which should probably be a line, I might look at the symbology for this layer. So that's these 3 little shapes. That's basically the color and everything. So we can look at what the drawing style is right now. And right now, it's actually looks like it's either white or transparent, which doesn't help me when I'm trying to look at it on a map. So if I change the symbol, I can make the fill be no color and the outline be maybe hot pink that's really thick outline so that I can see it very clearly on the map. So when I change that symbology, now you can exactly see the boundary for the city of San Jose. This gives you a lot of opportunities for injects too, just based on boundaries. When I see stuff like this, I'll zoom in a lot of times to an area that looks interesting to me, and I'll go, hey, this school is right on the edge of something that's not in the city versus something that is in the city. So maybe I might design a bunch of injects for that school. So there's a bunch of questions on whose jurisdiction is that, which fire department's going to go to it, who's handling it, which means you'll have to probably do some research just on plain old internet on how their fire service is structured, whether they're CAL FIRE solely, whether they're city fire departments, or especially in law enforcement, if the city contracts with the sheriff's office for their own law enforcement. That's a pretty common one too. So there is still an amount of, Googling that you'll need after you get a bunch of data on your map. But at least this is a really good start. It lets you see a lot of things visually. These red areas were part of that community center layer that we loaded. So it's telling you everything about that community center in the pop-up, the name, the address. You never know what data is in the pop-ups. You can learn a lot from those. But it helps you choose what to tank. You can see these hospitals on here. I happen to know San Jose serves a lot of their data up in ReadyNet, so I could even log into ReadyNet and see more about those hospitals. It's really just kind of what you have access to as an exercise designer. So once you have things that you want on your map that are being served up, you may need to add data that isn't already in ArcGIS Online. And I'm going to take an example here of maybe we've been asked to design an earthquake scenario. And so earthquakes are pretty easy because the United States Geological Survey already does a lot of data in GIS or KMZ format, and we can use that in these maps. So if you're on the USGS website here, and I'm just going to go back, I've already found a shaking scenario, this haywired shaking scenario. You can go to the shake scenario catalog, look them up, see about where they are just from the pictures. But if you click on these shake map links here, you can they already serve up an interactive map on USGS, but that doesn't help me in the map that I'm working in. I need the data to be there. So if you go to this downloads button, there's all these data products that make that pretty picture, or things like this TV info sheet is a nice kind of text version of it that gets faxed to all our TV stations when this happens. And what I tend to look for in here is the intensity overlay KMZ file, because that's basically what all those colors are. So I've actually already downloaded this one onto my personal computer. And this time I'm going to add data, but instead of search for layers, I'm going to say, we don't add it here. I'll get back to that. We're going to add it from this menu, but we have to add it into the account first. So you're going to come back to this map, but before you leave it, be sure to save. And so all this stuff will be there when you come back. So let's add the shaking intensity layer. I'm going to go back to my content here, because remember, that's the catalog of everything that is in our account, including the new map that we just made. And I'll show you that as soon as it loads. Sorry, my internet's a little slow this morning. So here's the sample map we were just working on. We need one of these things, a layer for that shake map. So I'm going to just hit add item from my computer. And then I'm going to choose the USGS file that I downloaded, which is this polygons KMZ right there. So you could rename it to be whatever you want that's actually going to kind of jog your memory if you have to just see it in Word format. And again, you have to have a tag on everything in ArcGIS. So I'll just say add item. I don't know if that period's going to mess me up, but we'll find out real fast here. And so what it'll do is it's going to add that as an item in your content. And it even says San Jose 6.2. You can still edit the name if you don't like it here. You can open it to see it in the map viewer. I happen to know that this is the right file I want, so I'm really not going to look at it right now. I'm just going to go back to the map that I was working on, which again is in your content. And so the custom exercise, now we have the sample map and the 6.2 earthquake file. So I'm going to open the sample map back up. And it shows you all the stuff that's on the map right here and what it's named and everything. So open in map viewer is what I'm going to pick. And as soon as it loads, you're going to see the exact same map and screen and everything that we've been working on this whole time. So it may take a second to load all the different layers depending on how many you've put on there already. But once things have loaded up, you can say add data and search for layers again. And this time, if you keep it at my content, it's probably the top layer because you just added it into your content folder, or you could search for it by name, but it's right there, San Jose 6.2. So I'm just going to hit the little plus sign. And it's going to add all of this opaque coloring for that specific shake scenario from USGS. And now I can't see anything, if you notice, but we can totally fix that with symbology. So just like I changed the city limit symbology, now I'm going to go to San Jose 6.2 and change this transparency. So again, the 3 little dots there, I can change transparency and make it so I can see through it. Now I can see all the data. Be careful not to make it too transparent or you lose all your colors and everything. Your simulators will be probably looking at this when they're in the sim cell because now they know exactly where the heaviest shaking was versus the lightest. So if they get a question for something out here, maybe the damage isn't as bad as it would be on this northwestern point of the city. So that gets shaking scenarios on there. You can zoom back in. So the earthquake scenarios are really the only ones you'll be able to do this with. If somebody's requested a fire scenario or a flooding, you either need them to give you files that they may have in their jurisdiction, or you may have to work with Cal OES GIS to kind of just make a blanket shape with a color in it that shows maybe the fire boundary. I happen to have ArcPro, so I would do that myself, but most people don't, so you may have to just get Cal OES GIS to make something for you. So just like before, we're going to hit save again. And now we have this thing that we can hunt through, click on things. You can use this measuring tool to measure, how many miles it is from kind of this area to this area, 9 miles. If we're doing hazmat scenarios, those are pretty handy because of evacuation perimeters and things. You can also change it to the point, and so you can click anywhere in the map, get your lat long for that one area. This is helpful on the measle. There's a tab that says map index. And so there'll be 2 columns for lat long on that map index tab, because when I'm done building my entire scenario, maybe I've chosen to derail a train right about here. And so I get the lat long for that, but I have to actually have the measure tool open, sorry. So I get the lat long for my train derailment and put it in my measle. And I do that as I'm building my measle. So by the time I'm done with all the things I wanted to put in there, I now have a listing of all the locations of every single simulation we're going to do. So I build this map to build my measle, but then part of the finishing the products up and making them ready for the sim cell, which I will also reference in the next video again, just so you have a memory of it, is to put that inject layer on here so that they can see every single simulation no matter what time it happens. Because remember, you got 13 people running simulations. You don't want somebody to say something didn't happen when it did. So that's just like adding all these other layers. We'll go add, and we'll say a layer from file this time. And I'll choose the file. I happen to have that tab here on my desktop as says map index, and it's just a CSV file. You have to save that tab as a CSV to import it into GIS. And so this is map index from a San Jose exercise we designed earlier. And so if I say import layer, the computer is going to take a few minutes to see what all it can see. So it says there's some data missing, but if I just hit OK on that and I say damaged infrastructure, building damage, it looks like it got all my stuff anyway. So that could have been some field or something in the data. And I can go in here in options, and instead of these multicolored dots, which are actually kind of a little hard to see, I could even go into these symbols and pick new symbols in here. And there's a lot of really good ones in disasters or in government infrastructure. So right now I'm clicked on building damage. I could look up something that kind of embodies building damage. Don't really see one there. So if I go to, let's try general government. Now there's, you know, some more building pictures, like this one's used for shelter quite a bit. There's really all you just kind of have to get familiar with the types of icons that are in these shape catalogs. You'll find a favorite that you like the most. Like this government one, sorry, is my favorite. There's a lot of stuff in here. So like building damage might be this red one. Actually, CAL FIRE DINS data pretty much uses these 5 right here. And I can make it a little bit bigger so the simulators can see it real easy because it'll pop off of the screen that way. So now that I do that, now you can kind of see those building damage dots, and those were in my scenario, something, probably an unreinforced masonry building or something I wanted to destroy. And so the simulators can see that this thing got destroyed. They can even click on it. And so this is the 6.2 file. Oh, actually, no, this is the actual dot there. So this is the SAP center, and it says a portion of the roof is caved in because that's in that Excel file. So that's how you make that final layer. Sometimes these layers being under the shake map like that, I'm gonna hit done, I'm not gonna change all of these icons right this second, can make it a little bit challenging for the sim cell, but it is actually right on the top here. You can drag layers into different orders. So I'll put like all the school layers together, all the water layers together. So they're a little bit easier for the sim cell to even find, because they'll end up turning things on and off and to answer questions. That's kind of why this is a tool for you as the exercise designer, but it also ends up being a tool for the simulation cell by the time you're done designing. Because remember, you're the one who created all this stuff. Your 12 simulators don't know any of it the morning they walk in, and you're not going to be able to get it to sink into their brains enough that they can remember it. So this is their tool for that. I'll zoom out to a decent viewable map area. Like, since this is an exercise for a city, I might just make sure the whole city boundary is viewable, because a map feeds your application. And so you want to save it the way you want your application to open. So I'm going to go ahead and save that map. I'm going to say that I'm completely done now, and I'm packaging all this stuff up for actual exercise day. So I got my map. If I go back to content, now I can actually make the viewing application for the simulation cell. Again, as an exercise designer, I'm just working straight in the map for however many days I'm working on this exercise. I'm a smart cookie. I don't need the viewing application, but you don't want everybody to have to learn that much of ArcGIS Online, you know, what every drop-down means and all that stuff. You want them to have an easy way to access your map. So we're going to say create an application using Web App Builder. This is kind of like baby way to create an application. So I'm going to say sample map viewing application. Again, you have to have a tag. You can put whatever summary you want in there. Sample app. You can assign categories if you want to. It's going to save in the custom exercises folder. I'm going to hit OK on that. Your CSTI people on site know the login for ArcGIS and everything, so they can log in at the SimCell, get people's screens to have this up. You won't have to worry about that since you may not be on scene. The biggest thing is to create the viewing application for them so that they'll use that instead of the map. So you can do whatever theme you want. I pretty much tend to do this dark theme or Dart theme just because it seems to be the one that people get used to the easiest. I'll change it to blue just for CSTI. Notice it gives you a blank map again. We don't want a blank map. We want to choose one that we've already made. So here's my sample map that I was just working on. If I select that, now it'll swap that map out in the application with the map that I made with all of my stuff on it. And I can now focus on what we call widgets so that our SimCell people have things they can use. You always have the zoom in, zoom out, and the layers list and the legend, but there are more widgets I typically put on there for them. So I'll go add a widget. I like to add one that's called search. Let me find where it is here, search. So if I add search, and I always just keep all the default settings, it's fine. Now you see they have a way to find an address. So if a player calls them, gives them an address of a piece of infrastructure, they can find it just as fast as the person giving it to them, and they can make something up that, because we won't have that written down, we're not that clairvoyant, they can make something up based on the things in the map around the address they just searched for. So I almost always add the search. I almost always add the base map gallery. So if our simulators need to see, you know, a mountainside or a rooftop versus this cartoon roads map, they can change the base map. I almost always add the measuring tool, measurement there. So that works the same as what you were doing on the map to measure things, but especially in hazmat scenarios, people will say, yeah, we want to isolate 5 miles from the event. And that gives you an idea of how far 5 miles out is. There's a ton of widgets. Feel free to play. You can't really break the thing. You can put draw on there, then they can draw things right on their screen with their mouse and everything to help keep themselves straight. It won't save that, but it could be a tool for them. And those are pretty much the standard ones I put on. So when I hit OK, all those widgets are down here at the bottom here. And you can get really fancy. You can go in here, change it to the CSTI symbol, whatever you want to do. But honestly, these are used one and done usually, so I don't spend too much time on them. And then when you're done making it look the way you want it to look, you can hit save. And it'll tell you that it's saved. So now if I go back to my content, I will see the shake map layer, the map that we were working on, and the viewing application. So here's the shake map layer, here's the map, here's the viewing application. This is the one that everybody's gonna open when they're in the SimCell and use. So that's the thing that you have to have done by exercise day, but you just saw how fast it was to make it. A lot of times I'll make them at the very end. So that's pretty much how to make maps to help you as an exercise designer and for the simulation cell to keep things straight. This is a really great way to do stuff, especially if you're doing multi-jurisdictional exercises between multiple counties, which I've done before, because then when you're building your measle over the course of your whole year, everybody knows all the different simulations and you can work interactively with people online, things like that. But those are a little bit more advanced. Right now, we're just showing you how to do it for CSTI purposes. So I hope that helps. The last video that I'll be doing is how to package everything up. So how to mail merge the measle, how to put everything in time order, how to double check your timing for your simulators. And I might even have a refresher on making this application because that is, again, part of that finalization. But right now you have how to make your map, how to make your measle, and we'll get ready for packaging in the next video. Thanks for watching.